The end. Whipping. Not on my boat, episode 6. What is whipping? Whipping is the action of a line aloft, flapping around, whipping, so that the end is shredded, and we start losing length in our cordage aloft. This was prevalent on square sail ships, and they would send sailors aloft to whip the ends of these lines if this happened. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to whip the ends of this line. We'll need a couple of tools. So here are some scissors, some pliers, a sailor's palm for pushing a needle. The needle, and this is a number, let's see if I can get this where you can see it. This is a number 14 sail needle. I like a number 14. We're going to need some whipping twine. Now, you can go to your marine store, marine supply store, and buy little plastic spools of color, different color whipping twine. You can use dental floss or dental tape. Make sure it's waxed. You can use whatever flavor you would like to use. Doesn't really matter. I prefer tarred seine twine, and I buy this by the pound spool, and I buy this from Memphis Net Company. It is saturated all the way through, so the tar goes all the way through all of the fibers. Now, some of the stuff that's available out on the market today is only dipped in tar and not nearly as good. So this is a polyester that is, I think it's a polyester or nylon, I don't remember, but it is saturated. All the fibers have tar around them. So before we get started on this process, we're going to practice. So here we have the end of a halyard or a sheet, whatever, and here's our whipping twine. And we're going to cause this to be in a circle. Now, you're going to pull off about 3 or 4 feet of whipping twine, and you're going to cause the ends to overlap about 3 or 4 inches or so, just like this. And then you're going to match it to the end of your work, your halyard or your sheet, and you're going to hold it there with your thumb on top, just like that. Now, we're going to take this strand right here, this outboard strand, and we're going to wrap it around going inboard. So we're going to lock that strand in place. Can you see what I did right there? I locked that strand in place. Now, this has to be pretty. So all of these strands have to lay exactly smoothly next to each other. And we're going to continue to wrap them. We don't want to get any crossing turns. We don't want to get any gaps between them. We want to make sure this is all nice and pretty. Now, once we've gone around, we want to whip approximately a diameter. So here's our diameter, and we've whipped approximately a diameter, and we've started approximately from the end, a diameter. That's a general rule of thumb, and you can use that, or just do what looks good to you. Now, once we get to this point, we're going to hold the short end with our pliers. Let's see if I can get this done now. We're going to hold the short end with our pliers, and I'll do that in a second. But we're going to pull this right here, this outboard end. We're going to pull it so this loop reduces to nothing. And now we'll pull it very tight with our pliers. And I'm putting a lot of force on this. And so now this is a completed process. We could cut it there, we could cut it there, and we would be done. All of these strands are gripping our core and our cover and keeping them from separating. But if you look at this, I want you to see something right here. And let me get a little bit closer. This strand is going all the way under and coming out here. This strand is going all the way under and coming out here. Now, you can't see it, but they form an overhand knot right there under all of these strands. So these strands are all like fingers grabbing this and holding it to keep it from coming undone. And you can pull this as tight as you can. Quite often I use 2 pairs of pliers to pull it really, really, really tight. And then I will put a needle on this end, the long end, and I'll sew it. So we're actually going to do that here in just a second. So here's Here is our whipping twine. I've prepared, this is about 30 inches for what we're doing right here. I'm going to cause this to overlap just like this. Let me get this out of the way. We don't need it quite yet. I've caused this to overlap just about 3 or 4 inches. I'm going to hold my thumb right on top of the line, just like this. I'm going to start with this side of the loop. So here's my loop. Here's my 2 overlapping ends right here. And I'm going to grab the outboard loop, and I'm going to go around, and I'll lock on top of that and stack in this direction, making sure that all my strands are tight. There's no gap between them. There's no overriding turns. And you want to be pretty here. You want to take your time and get it nice and tight, because this is going to be on here for a long, long time. And that looks pretty good to me right there. Now I'm going to hold all this. I don't want anything to slip. So here's my original 2 ends right here and here. I'm going to grab this outboard end. I'm going to pull it, and it's going to reduce this loop to nothing. And I want to pull just a little bit at a time, make sure it doesn't tangle or anything. And that is properly whipped. Now I will put my pliers on here, and I'm going to pull this really tight. Now at this point, we could cut off both of the ends, and we would be done. This is sufficient. But us sailors, we want to make sure that we do this absolutely properly. And a proper whipping should be sewn. So here I've already pre-whipped this, and I've threaded my needle onto here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut this end away. We can cut it as close as we can and as close as we want to. And so that is done. I'm going to put my palm in my hand. Now we're going to pull this whipping in straight, and we're going to insert our needle right there. And we're going to push it through. And we want to try to make sure that we get 180 degrees, half and half. Now this is locking the cover and the core in place, and it is protecting our whipping. So now the whipping can't slide off the end, and our cover and our core is locked in place. So I'm going to pull this straight again and go right through there. And I want to come out at my hole, my original starting hole, if I can. And I usually can. And let's see. And don't poke yourself in the finger here. It hurts. Not that I've ever done it before. All right, so I've gone through here twice, and a pair of pliers here sometimes are useful, but I got it this time. Okay, so now I've sewn on this side, I've sewn on this side. I'm going to put one more down here, and I'm going to go into this hole right here, and I'm going to go in at a diagonal. And I'll pull it tight. Now this is the time to pull it tight and make sure it's very snug. I've got a strand there, I got a strand there, and I've put a diagonal right here. I'm going to go into this hole where it exits and sew another diagonal. And I'm going to go in this hole where it exits and sew another diagonal. Now we are locking our cover and our core together. Now I'm going to go straight across, and I'm going to sew a couple more diagonals back toward the end. Now this will lock the end in place. This strand will be locked in place, and it will not come out. A couple of diagonals, and I'll push that through. Now we can take the final little bit, trim it off as close as we can, let that disappear back into the cordage, and there we have the whipped end, whipped and sewn. This is a sailor's whipping. Both ends of every line on your boat should be whipped. Now let me rephrase that. Both ends of every line on your boat should be whipped. This is proper. No tape. Oh God, no tape. All right, so that is whipping. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, what happens if I have some shock cord? Now, you can treat the ends of shock cord any number of ways. The most effective way I have found is CA glue, the thin viscosity CA glue. That's cyanoacrylic. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. It's CA glue. It's super glue, but it's super thin. This is the viscosity of water. So when you soak the end of this shock cord, it's going to permeate all the fibers and the rubber and everything. And when you get it, when you get the end solid, and this is a piece of plastic now. This is no longer shock cord. Then you can just trim it off, and you have a nice, neat end. Thank you for watching. I'm Mr. Knots, not on my boat.